place. When he walked into the pristine building in the middle of the city, he saw a bored employee manning the front desk. Upon confirming that he was in the right place, he dropped the werewolf pelt on the table. He just came by to collect some bounty. The employee was unenthusiastic, thinking he was being pranked with some dog skin. Upon seeing the whole head of a dead werewolf, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This time, Jin did not deny killing the werewolf himself. He was escorted into a separate room and was politely asked to wait. A few minutes later, a different Alliance employee came in. Given the amount involved for the bounty's payout, they had to make sure that the pelt was the real deal. The experts confirmed its authenticity and authorized the release of the bountiful reward. This amount of gold coins in one sack should allow him to live a comfortably lazy life for 6-7 years. It didn't feel real until he saw the glimmering coins in person. His hands trembled. It was a different thrill compared to hunting. But money is definitely a good thing, no matter what world you live in. While he was imagining a bountiful next couple of days, the man who released the reward asked him if he would be interested in taking on another request. That sounded like an opportunity to make even more cash. Apparently, a monster recently settled down at a nearby quarry, and it is causing quite a headache. Because of the monster, the workers cannot continue working in the quarry. Without the bloodstone mining operation, money had stopped circulating in the city, putting it on the brink of financial ruin. Their intel suggests that the monster terrorizing the local economy was stronger than a werewolf. Jin might just be the man for the job. As it turns out, the quarry had been taken over by the monster known as Mad Skull. This oversized warthog has a bounty of 70 gold coins. Jin had read about this creature in the chronicles. Moreover, he had already faced one. As the name suggests, the Mad Skull has a nearly unbreakable skull. But its most troublesome trait was its relentless aggression. A werewolf can't even compare when it comes to raw toughness and strength. In truth, it took Wu Jin a month to kill one of these things for the first time. He died 28 times in 28 separate nightmares before he figured out how to get the job done. With all that in mind, he readily accepted the job. His next prey had been decided. The very next day after getting all the necessary intel, Kim Wu Jin headed for the quarry. He heard that mining operations stopped due to monster activity. However, the gloom of an abandoned quarry was still a bit unnerving. This was not a place he would want to stay long. Wanting to finish the job as soon as possible, he headed for the massive mining tunnel, but was stopped before entering. Gathered outside the tunnel was a group of people claiming to have arrived first. They were just prepping for battle, so it would be cool if Jin waited for his turn. Right away, he was ticked off that a bunch of randoms wanted him to waste time in queue for a monster hunt. The leader of the group suggested they join forces so there would be no waiting game. They were clearly a mercenary troop. If these mercs were good enough to kill the Mad Skull, coming all the way here would have been for nothing. He doesn't really want to fight some people who are just trying to make a living. Even though there would have to be some loot sharing, it might be better to keep the peace and work together. Still, he knows not to trust these strangers too easily. Showing a little bit of teeth, he confronted the mercs about why they'd want to recruit someone they know nothing about. The red-haired leader chuckled and embarrassedly admitted that he was the type to prioritize safety over performance. He took one look at the lone hunter and knew that he was strong. He would be a huge boon to the team. Still speaking with a hint of hostility, Jin asked how Red gauged his strength. Red simply pointed to the side and answered that the wolf would not be following a weak master. The mutt was now licking the face of one of the mercs, a beautiful blonde woman. She claimed that even the Order Alliance had not been able to tame a prideful, independent wolf before. Jin specifically told Mutt to stay hidden, but here he was, licking some pretty lady's face. He's just like me for real. He quickly figured out why the mutt disobeyed. It was because of meat. This shameless creature dared to munch on the nice lady's meat when Jin had never tasted this world's meat cuisine yet. The mutt must have read his thoughts. After one big bite, he tossed the drool-covered piece of meat to his master. Everyone was stunned upon seeing such an absurd scene. Jin was pissed that his new pet was expecting him to take a bite out of tainted meat. Still, even though it was covered in wolf saliva and dirt, it sat perfectly on the ground, waiting to be consumed. Jin's body moved against his will and reached for the dirty meat. It had been a while since he had a real meaty dish. His mind protested, but his body was moving on desperate autopilot. Before his human dignity was tossed aside in front of a bunch of strangers, a kind hand stopped him from throwing away his humanity. The lady who originally gave Mutt the meat cheerfully handed him a fresh one, still sealed in cloth. Right then and there, the famished Kim Woo-jin started believing in gods. In this cruel world, he found a gorgeous goddess he could trust, the goddess of meat. After a quick lunch with the mercs, the whole group entered the mining tunnel illuminated by magic crystals. Jin was still savoring the remnants of his lunch. It was delicious, savory, and a tad spicy. It was incomparable to the monster meat he had to consume for survival. The goddess of meat turned to him and started some late introductions. Red's name was Jonathan, captain of the Black Marlin mercenary group. The goddess was Claire. Kim Woo-jin gave them his full name but cut himself off, just introducing himself as Jin for easier pronunciation. When the group reached a grand clearing in the middle of the mining area, Jonathan halted the march and quickly got to work. Everyone knew their jobs, and they worked efficiently. The trap team set up the nets, and the spear team moved to their assigned positions. As for Claire and the captain, they will be fulfilling a very important task. Jin watched as the air around the two turned light and full of life. Claire opened her grimoire and gave him his first glimpse of magic in action. The chronicles mentioned the use of magic in this world, but seeing it in person was an entirely different experience. Staking her own name, Claire drew an unknown power through some sort of prayer. With incantation and magic circles, she cast a feather step on the captain. Jonathan relished Claire's buffs with a grin. She was excellent as always. She warned the captain that he only had 3 minutes at best, and 5 at worst. He'll be on the most dangerous assignment, so everyone else had better stay ready. After some dynamic stretching, Captain Jonathan ran deeper into the mines to lure the Mad Skull out. Jin was impressed by how much the captain's speed was augmented. Magic sure was cool. He suddenly had an itch to learn how to use magic like Claire. While the captain was out, the chain of command and discipline stayed intact. It was a great operation. They knew that if even one person made a mistake, they could all die in the blink of an eye. The mercs were planning on driving the monster into a trap and pouring every bit of firepower into it. It was not a bad plan by any means. However, he was skeptical whether this would work specifically against a monster like Mad Skull. Just a few minutes later, the sound of the captain's footsteps could be heard getting closer. Jonathan signaled the trap team to load up as he smoothly drifted back to home base. The trap team pulled on their nets with all their might and effectively halted the Mad Skull's mad charge. Each rope was manned by multiple muscles to ensure the trap would hold firm. Once certain that the oversized boar was stuck in place, the mercs brought out their spears. They threw those things like harpoons, piercing through the monster's thick hide. The pain of multiple sharp objects piercing its skin made the boar roar with an unpleasant sound. It made the trap team falter a little, but they remained standing. Fueled by the pain and its natural aggression, the Mad Skull generated more sudden force than they were expecting. Jin watched in high alert as the entire trap team was lifted off their feet. When it came to raw strength, the beast easily outclassed the entire mercenary troop combined. After landing back on the ground, the trap team tried their hardest to regain footing. Weaknesses in a few key areas resulted in the beast breaking free from the restriction. It immediately aggroed into the team that dared to tie the beast down. Claire was directly in its line of sight. Worried, she hurriedly loaded up a magic spell to repel the monster. Jin wasn't going to let the woman with the most delicious meat get mauled by a reckless boar. Without a hint of fear, he faced the Mad Skull in isolation. The overwhelming force threatened to send him flying, but he gambled his aura by stopping the violent charge with his bare hands. Claire saw what he was doing and warned him against such a boneheaded approach. He did not listen, nor did he need to listen. He might be one of the few people in this world who knew how to properly take down a Mad Skull. Jin pushed the tusks to the side, creating some space. Using that gap, he reached for his blade. He sliced up, hoping to deal some heavy damage to the monster's chin. Unfortunately, even though he had gotten stronger, he did not have enough raw strength to end it in one hit. Naturally, the Mad Skull had more raw power than he did. It also recovered surprisingly fast. The deadly tusks refocused their target lock, and Jin had let his guard down. On the brink of getting brutally stabbed, he was bailed out by timely support. Claire buffed him with a feather step, making it possible to throw himself out of the boar's line of attack. Feeling the effects of magic for the first time, he was astounded. His body felt so much lighter. It was like dropping a 30-kilo pack from his shoulders. With this, he should be able to hunt the Mad Skull in the most efficient way possible. The rest of the Black Marlin mercenary group congregated in his position, offering their help, but Jin cautiously told them to back off. For now, dicing up this pig would be easier to do alone, with no one getting in the way. Based on experience, hunting a Mad Skull was surprisingly straightforward. Even with such a menacing name, it's ultimately just a big pig. Sure, it could run supremely fast in a straight line, but its lateral movement is horrible. While being led out of the tunnel, it repeatedly crashed into the walls on either side. Managing its aggro while moving side to side is the easiest way to stop that seemingly unstoppable charge. After letting the beast make a fool of itself multiple times, Jin continued taking advantage of his agility buff. In desperation, the Mad Skull tried to take a bite of him, but it was too slow. For the second step of the hunt, one must view those tusks, as long swords, as the monster's hands. Except that these murder weapons cannot be cut with a blade. The real juicy target was what's in the middle of those tusks, the monster's weak point, the nose. With a perfectly timed counter, Jin chopped that big-ass nose in half. He had already expected a crazy rampage after landing such an attack, but the pain of that wound should intensify with every movement. Eventually, it will become impossible to attack any further. Once the Mad Skull is exhausted and drained of blood, it's time to carve up the beast. Jin started the slaughter with the hind legs, slicing them apart to cut off mobility. Once the forelegs are out of the picture, that creature won't even be able to stand, let alone attack. After immobilizing and carving up his victim, a disturbing smile crept across his face. The mercs followed the fight, worried about the lone stranger. When they saw the aftermath of the Mad Skull's last-ditch effort to survive, they shuddered. Claire wanted to run up to Jin to make sure that he was all right, but the mutt stopped her from interfering. There was no need to worry or intervene. Jin is back with no mad skull in sight. Moreover, his mouth was suspiciously bloody. That guy could not resist eating some monster essence as a snack. The mad skull problem had been taken care of. All that's left was pork. Captain Jonathan had been working as a mercenary for a long time, and he had never heard of anyone taking down a mad skull solo. While everyone was celebrating, the mutt called everyone's attention as he growled upon smelling something. Another mad skull emerged from the mining shaft, and there were a few more behind. One of these bastards was hard enough to deal with. Multiples of them would be flat out impossible. Being an experienced merc, Jonathan collected himself, took up arms, and instructed his boys to prepare for battle. Before hostilities could erupt once more, Claire stopped the boneheaded boys. The mad skulls that emerged from the mining shaft were a concerned parent and 2 piglets. Those little crying chonkers were adorable. The parent was visibly upset but not acting aggressively. If anything, it was surrendering and retreating with the babies. They must have seen what that one human can do to their kind and decided that they wanted to keep living. A family of mad skulls must have taken over the quarry to raise their young in here. Now the captain feels kind of bad for breaking up a family, but he was also glad that they could wrap this up somewhat peacefully. By night, the mission was accomplished, and the victorious group had returned to 5th Pioneer City. The Black Marlins have gathered at the local pub to celebrate the massive dub without serious injuries. The time had come for the biggest highlight of the hunt. It's time to revel in the joy of labor. It's time for the bounty reveal. Everyone raised their glasses while Claire counted the money bags. The reward was supposed to be 70 gold coins, but there were way more than 70 on the table. Captain Jonathan bragged that he managed to squeeze the Order Alliance for more dough by making a fuss over inaccurate information provided. They were sent on a mission to deal with 1 mad skull, but there were 2 adults and even a couple of piglets in there. Using that surprise, he demanded a bigger reward. He negotiated a 70 gold bounty up to a whopping 110 gold coins. Jin asked how he pulled it off, since they technically killed only 1 beast. The captain proudly revealed that he just told the Alliance a little white lie. His men approved of this method. If you don't get caught, whatever you claim just becomes the truth. Jin certainly found some interesting people to team up with. Jonathan also announced that half of all the earnings will go to Jin. Getting half for doing all the work is crazy. The captain even admitted that his whole crew would have died a dog's death if Jin weren't there. Since the reward went up, there's enough cash for a pretty nice split for everyone. Although the trap was a bit of a failure, the buff was a huge help in successfully hunting such a fast and strong monster. Jin had no problem accepting the split just because of Claire's magic. In a celebratory mood, he even offered to pay for everyone's drinks the whole night through. Calling the Black Marlins heavy drinkers would be an understatement. Their captain himself drank liquor by the barrel. While the boys were being rowdy, Claire packed up her things and headed for the door. When Jin asked where she was going, Claire answered that she was going to get some magic practice done. Curious about the mystical world of magic, Jin obviously tagged along. Claire found a quiet spot just outside the city, took off her shoes, showed her feet, and meditated. The world's innate mana danced around her tired body, replenishing the juice she had used up earlier in the day. She might be exhausted from the hunt, but she still found the time to train. Jin was impressed. With Claire's help, perhaps learning magic was a possibility for him too. When he brought it up with Claire the next day, she was open to the idea of tutoring him in arcane arts. She was surprisingly agreeable. She wanted to give him something as a gift anyway, so this was the perfect opportunity. When the mad skull charged at her, Jin stepped up to the plate, unlike a certain useless captain. She made sure that Jonathan heard her complaints about failing to uphold one of the basics of combat, protecting the mage. The captain interjected, warning Jin that learning magic cannot be done overnight, and they would have to leave 5th Pioneer City in 2 days. Claire argued that Jin could just tag along. Still, Jonathan didn't see any reason why such a strong monster hunter would waste his time following some mediocre mercenaries. He understands that a brave wolf is usually most comfortable alone. Interfering with his journey would be rude. They got it twisted though. Jin doesn't really have anything planned for the future, but the captain was making him feel like he needed to save face for no reason. Playing along with the lone wolf persona, he asked where the Black Marlins were heading next. They have a big job lined up in the 4th Pioneer City, so the course is set. Awkwardly averting his gaze, Jin claimed that he was actually planning on going to the same place. This dude just wanted to learn magic. He was a terrible liar. Claire and Jonathan played him like a fiddle and made it seem like tagging along was his idea. He was hooked. They acted grateful for having such a reliable ally on deck, welcoming Jin warmly. Admittedly, Jin liked the feeling of being welcomed. The next destination has been decided. The journey to the 4th was quite monotonous. The Black Marlin caravan maintained a decent pace. With them was a Tarask, a monster that had undergone selective breeding as a means of transport. It's one of the few monsters tamed and bred by humanity. Jin had read about them in the chronicles. Due to this one's size, using it as a pack animal instead of a horse made sense. Throughout the long walk, Captain Jonathan did a good job maintaining morale. At night, Jin would join Claire in her meditation ritual, painstakingly trying to grasp at something new. There are dozens of reasons why learning something so foreign is hard. What he found the hardest was the requirement of repetitive effort. In any task, there are parts where growth is only possible through practice. Growing in that area tends to be sluggish. In some cases, like his very own, stagnation is possible. Repeating the same thing over and over again without anything to show for it was very painful. Still, he was used to this pain. Kim Woojin persevered. He did not repeatedly die, enduring 12 years of pain to survive the demonic realm. To give up now. One cold night, while meditating alone in the middle of the serene woods, he felt his first spark. Claire saw it happen from afar and merrily went up to him with her congratulations. It took Jin 10 whole days just to feel the faintest spark of mana. It was a difficult process to say the least. Claire admitted that he was on the slow side of progression, but progress was progress, no matter how slow. Some people with absolutely no talent go their entire lives without sensing mana. For the second stage of their lessons, she pulled out a vial of blue liquid from her pouch. She poured the shiny substance into a metal cup and put on her gloves. Preparations are done. It's time for Jin to get undressed. Not knowing what was about to happen and where her gloved-up hand would go, Jin's imagination ran wild. After getting rid of his clothes, Claire dipped 2 fingers into the sticky substance and got to work. She used that thing to draw an elaborate magic construct covering Jin's backside. This would make it possible to inject him with mana to make a path. Once the structure was solidly connected, she started the injection process. Claire manipulated the magic circle inside the construct to levitate above his skin. When she gently put her energy in, Jin was jolted into high alert. The feeling was on a totally different scale than the tiny wisp he felt from meditating. Deep inside his body, he started sensing something thicker than blood flowing through invisible channels. It was mana. Real mana? Once again, she congratulated him for taking his first big step into the world of magic. There are 3 basic stages of wielding magic. First is simply feeling mana, next is storing that mana inside one's body. At last comes utilizing magic in its infinite forms. Since Jin passed the first stage, they should be able to move to the second stage tonight. Claire will control the mana and send it towards his heart to give it a kick start. It would be best if he held his breath while grasping the sensation to create a proper vessel to store magic inside his body. Once her preparation was done, she shoved a hefty amount of mana into his channels, coalescing in his heart. Suddenly, Claire felt like an insect being preyed upon by a dangerous savage, a killing praying mantis. It consumes its prey with reckless abandon, letting its poor victim scream in agony. Once it had taken the life of its fellow creature through predation, the mantis turned. It looked deep into Claire's soul with its 100 eyes. She snapped back into reality, shaken to the core by the ominous energy. Claire tried to stop the mana infusion, but she couldn't. Her mana was being drained at a ridiculous degree. At this rate, she will be sucked into oblivion. Thankfully, the mutt was there to watch over the process. Sensing the danger, he wrapped his tail around Claire and yanked her away. If it wasn't for the red wolf, she would have been reduced to a dried-up husk back there. She owed the clever big fella for that clutch save. When Jin woke up from unconsciously sucking her dry, Claire collapsed onto her knees. He worriedly checked on her while she was distracted by what she saw. There was no mistaking it. That horrible scene came from Jin's mental world. Mental worlds manifest when a person's power and nature take a tangible shape. It depends on the life that the person has lived, varying from person to person. For such an ominous presence to exist in Jin's mental world, just what kind of life did this man lead? Worried and curious, Claire asked him a question that needed an honest answer. She asked if he had ever eaten an internal core before. Jin wasn't familiar with the term, so he didn't know how to answer. Claire explained that internal cores were the crystals found inside a monster's body. It was the thing he called the monster essence. Not seeing any problems, he admitted to eating them from time to time. Genuinely concerned about his physical and mental health, she asked how many cores he had eaten. Since he started using them as his main food source when he started hunting, and he's been killing non-stop for about 10 years now, he roughly estimated that he munched on maybe tens of thousands of them. He didn't see any problems with doing so. His stomach was never upset about his diet. You see, normally, humans who eat an internal core either die or turn into a monster themselves. By definition, karma is known as retribution. It is also the name of the turbid energy, abundant in the demonic realm. Living beings that absorb such a thing gain bizarre abilities and anomalies in their bodies. Upon accumulating enough karma, a nucleus can be formed, and a monster core is born. Over the next few days, Claire kept a close eye on Jin. One possibility kept bothering her. Out in the world, there are entities known to a few as dark priests. When the otherworldly gate opened and malicious karma engulfed the world, some humans followed the monsters and absorbed karma into their bodies. They hailed the beasts as angels. They ritualistically ate monster cores and sacrificed their fellow men. They were dangerous. Jin's confession reminded Claire of those mad men. Like the dark priests, he had eaten monster cores, tens of thousands of them no less. Still, if he were a dark priest, he would not have admitted to dabbling in such a taboo practice so easily. nor would he show his mental world to a stranger. Those oddities only made him even stranger. Even if he did